Hey there, Rageaholics. This is Andre. I know I don't normally record a formal introduction, but this isn't a normal episode. It is a very special episode, as a matter of fact. It's the last episode of the year, and it's also a look ahead at the next year, which reminds me, Rachel is hosting a live stream on the Astrology of 2024 on New Year's Eve at 1 in the afternoon, California time. Doors don't open until next week, but Rage listeners get early registration so that they can beat the crowd. But more on that later, because I really want to get back to this a very special episode. This is the end of our first year at the Rage of Aquarius podcast. It's the conclusion of a cycle. It brings the end of something. And I really want to thank you for supporting us through all of it, for tuning in, for listening, for whether it's on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, however you're hearing us. We're so grateful for that, because we know that it's been a bit rough and a lot cringe over the last year, because we've been learning and we've been overcoming a lot of hurdles and getting over that learning curve. But it's really been a great experience ultimately, to just come on here and get to record these conversations for you, and for your enlightenment and entertainment, and hopefully you find them enlightening and entertaining. Otherwise you wouldn't be listening to this one right now, I suppose. This podcast has started off as an experiment to offer something different in the world of online astrology. It's getting oversaturated. It's been oversaturated. I mean, it was oversaturated when I got into it. So if it was oversaturated then, it's like crazy oversaturated now. We wanted to offer you something new, something fresh, something that would, subvert your expectations and totally transcend what is commonly expected from, your average astrologer posting content in the year 2023. We really wanted to give you a different way of looking at the sky, and a different way of seeing the world through that lens. So I hope we've succeeded. Let us know in the comments if we have. If not, just follow the advice of your mother, and if you don't have anything polite to say, then don't say it. No, I'm kidding. Send us your hate too, because that's how you learn. You don't learn necessarily just through your praise. You also learn through your criticism. You actually learn most through your criticism, to be honest. So please send us your hate. We can take it. I really think we nailed something in this episode, that we nailed that promise to give you something, a new way of looking at things. It was a really fun episode to record. I personally, it's my favorite. I really feel we found our flow. We found our structure and our flow, third mind, a third spirit, or I guess in this case a fourth spirit, really kind of took things over and carried us. It felt that way to me, at least. And we cover a lot of ground. We start with the astrology behind the rise of Barbenheimer and Taylor Swift in 2023, and we close with the effect that Pluto in Aquarius and the Mars retrograde will have on the US presidential election in 2024, and everything in between. So it's a wild and crazy episode. Make sure you stay tuned until the very end so that you don't miss a minute of it. And also so that you can find out how to join Rachel's 2024 astrology forecast on New Year's Eve. But without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to the Rage of Aquarius podcast, the Outsider Astrology podcast. I am your host, Andre Burke, and I am accompanied by my lovely co-hosts, Rachel Capurso of Aeolian Heart Astrology and Frederick Woodruff of Woodruff Astrology.
Hello.
Hey, Andre and Rachel. Good to be back.
It's
Same.
good to be here. It's good to be with you. So we're gonna today we're gonna be talking about the upcoming astrology for the year 2024. We're gonna be doing a look ahead, but we're gonna start by doing a look back. We're gonna look back at 2023 and the big transits, how those played out. And I like this because I think so much of astrological content you consume is all about like looking ahead, what's going to happen,
Hmm.
and I think that has a lot to do with just like the content schedule that you always have to be out there. You always have to just be on the treadmill, getting your stuff on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
Hmm.
And so I like that we're starting off with a little a look back.
Yeah,
How do you guys feel about that?
I totally agree.
Yeah, I totally. And I guess how would we capsulize 23 without like going through like, every aspect that occurred or transit or whatever? How would you guys define 23 as a theme or whatever?
Well, in some ways, I felt like it was a bit of a rest from the level of strife and conflict that we've been suffering. And I'm not trying to diminish the struggles that we have had, but the stabilizing, slowed down quality of Jupiter and Taurus, very far away from Uranus, as well as that sort of sleepy end of history quality of Saturn and Pisces. All of
Mhm.
those elements to me, in just the most general, broad term, plus the two significant retrogrades of Venus and Mercury over the summer, I felt like this was a time to really not make a lot of sudden moves, uh, think things over, ruminate. I think ruminate is probably the best word. Ruminating on the things that have happened, ruminating
Mhm.
on what the next moves should be, um, trying to harmonize as best we can with what is, in many ways a very difficult and strenuous world. Um, but it is what it is. A lot of things have happened to the collective, which are traumatic, and unnerving. But this year was not a train wreck of surprises and shocks. Like, it was ruminating on the situation as it is, maybe
Mm.
getting a little more real.
Well, there have been a few surprises and shocks in the last couple months since October
Yes,
7th.
that's very true. I'm just making a general
Yeah.
a general
Right. But
yeah.
I think what you call ruminating, I would call it PTSD. Like I
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
Like,
think yeah, I mean in the sense, in the just socio-cultural sense, not astrologically, though that has its place too with the Pluto transit that
Mm-hmm.
was moving, at that late degree of Capricorn,
Yeah.
um, which I really equate with uh, a preamble to, the shock of it moving into a new sign.
Mm-hmm.
But coming out of COVID, um, I think people were starting to get their bearings, start to return into like some kind of social realm,
Right.
kids back in school. But then, as Pluto then retrograded, it sort of like pulled everything up from the muck again. And then suddenly, Trump is back booming through, every millisecond of the news cycle. And then the focus on Biden's age, the plummeting poll numbers. And then everyone's sort of like, oh, fuck, like 2020, like we're back to that. Like, so that was my kind of, and then Israel with that whole meltdown that just like set everything spinning. I think that's going to push us into the new year.
yeah,
That's kind
Yeah.
of my take on it.
yeah, yeah. It was definitely like this 2023 was like the cold shower, curled up in the fetal position with all your clothes on, kind of year. Like,
It's a good image.
It's true.
it was, yeah,
But you
yeah.
could be ruminating while you're curled
Oh
up on
yeah,
the
yeah.
floor.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, you got to rise above it all at some point, But no, I mean, I'm sitting here as I would, my thought would be as if, uh, my quip that I've been assembling in my head while I was listening to you guys was that if I were a pitchfork music critic, I would say I would give 2023 like a 6.4 out of 10.
Hmm.
Like it didn't
yeah.
quite like if 2020 was a 10 in terms of just how it delivered on like, man, that's Saturn Pluto, it brought a plague, and man, that's Saturn in Aquarius, it just brought like a big tech, hegemony.
Mhm.
It just how like on point the transits delivered. There were some moments in 2023 where, like before we got on the call, we were talking about how the Venus turned stationed retrograde on the day that Barbie and Oppenheimer both were released, which is, you know in terms of entertainment news, it was a big deal because those were the only two movies that made money this year. But in terms of just our, when you look at genre movies and blockbuster movies as mirror into the collective psyche or the collective unconscious,
Yeah.
it's like it's a movie about the guy that discovered the A bomb, that invented the A bomb on trial for being a communist, and a consumer, a third wave feminist, corporate apologist, kids movie, uh, uh, were the biggest releases, were made the biggest impact on the culture this year.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, the Venus thing with the Barbie for sure, but and then also the wild ascent of Taylor Swift
Oh my
as
God, yeah.
well. I mean, it's so there's this interesting, a part of the feminine that is reasserting and building momentum, and that's how I was kind of looking at that. I think Swift's tour made over $1 billion, or
Yeah, it's like
so. Go
go.
ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say it's like the most success, like financially successful tour of all time.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it sort of corresponds, like if you get into fixed stars, the whole thing where I think it's Regulus, like moved out of Leo, and finally by, uh conjunction connected up with the first degree or zero first degree of Virgo. And I kind of see that as like this major reemergence of, the maiden, the feminine, everything related to that Virgonian energy. And despite the glitzy parts of Taylor Swift, if you look at how her career started, it's much more down homey and kind of
Mm-hmm.
country, and then that progression she made into sort of, like a mid-career Madonna as far as stage presence and costuming and lighting and pizzazz and bling. I just kept thinking about that odd progression of that fixed star out of Leo into Virgo, and it's going to be there for eons.
Hmm.
That's really
I think
cool.
Hmm.
women are back, and Barbie announced it. I think that
Yeah.
was the biggest film of the year
Yep.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
As
Pink.
just since I am a Virgo, Mercury in Virgo, Sun in Virgo, and I think this is interesting to observe. And yet, when you actually like watch Barbie, which I did, I went to go see it. I used to love playing with Barbies. That was a big part of my childhood.
I had a Kindle, but then I was a
I
gay child.
I did too. I had a Ken doll. Just one though. which I guess that part of the experience of playing with Barbies, I felt the movie addressed very well. It's very true that the Ken dolls never mattered. But the thing that I found disturbing about Barbie was that it was a corporate apologist film. As I recall, the story was actually just kind of dumb. It just kind of unraveled into this really dumb, overly simplified, silly thing, which could have been okay because it was a comedy. But ultimately, it was morally bankrupt because there's these evil corporate overlords that
Mhm.
are supposedly the antagonists in the film, and they end up being like completely and totally unchallenged. And also in the end, they are not reprimanded or corrected in any way, shape, or form. They're just allowed to exist as these like monstrous, exploitative, greedy people.
Mm.
And I found that to be really disturbing and really corrupt. So I felt like, yes, it is a sign that there's some kind of, reemergence of the feminine, but it was extremely shallow. It was a thin veneer that actually wrapped up a deeper message, which is that, you know, greedy corporations that exploit you for profit are good. That was the message of the film. Really disturbing.
Well, corporations can be people too, are people too.
Yeah.
Like,
According to the Supreme Court, they are.
yeah, yeah.
Sympathetic to, yeah, to greedy corporate henchmen. I mean, literally, that's like those were characters in the film. They invaded the world of Barbie, and they were not disciplined. They were not corrected. They were not, they
I,
did they did
That's
not.
in the sequel, though. I'm sure.
yeah. Who knows? Maybe the Barbie and Ken will come to. They'll settle. They'll set aside their differences and realize that we have a common enemy here.
There
But
was
I think aside from Rachel's deep dive, I watched about 10 minutes and then my pancreas exploded. I couldn't, it just wasn't for me. But it saturated the culture so much. It was
Yeah,
just like pink madness was,
yeah.
yeah.
and so I just registered at that level, like what I was being bombarded with every day online or on TV
Oh
or
yeah, yeah.
you know
It had a real. It's one of I was talking on a call recently with a client about like the post simulacral world, this I that French post structuralist idea. I think it was from Jean Baudrillard that the simulation precedes the original, the authentic object.
hmm
That we don't drink actual, Coca-Cola isn't like a real flavor. It's the simulated flavor. It tastes like a soft drink, it tastes like a soda with actual like, simple syrup in it, but it's some kind of chemical fabrication. We don't actually watch the news anymore. We watch this kind of like performance of what the what we think the news should be. And I was when I saw one of the reasons I was so disappointed in both Barbie and Oppenheimer when I saw them both is like the meme the meme preceded the actual content that and that whole like Barbenheimer thing got me so excited, that commute, like a meme is just like this like this global inside joke that none of us actually know what the punchline is, but we're all kind of like smirking together. And that feeling, it's so like you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself, as corny as that would be to say. But
right.
when I finally saw the movies, it was like the simulation actually what preceded the actual content. Like the memes of Barbie, listening to people talk about Barbie online was actually better than Barbie itself. And I find that's true with a lot of modern movies where it's more fun to just read people trashing on them. and watch YouTube videos than it actually is to watch the actual movie.
Right. I think, yeah, I just wrote about this in a piece I'm publishing tomorrow on Neptune and Pisces about there's such a disconnect from what something actually is. And it's really like you're saying, there's more fascination just in everybody's commentary
Yeah.
about it. And being Pisces, it means it's sort of like regurgitating things that are going round and round and round like in an eddy, which often Pisces can be like that, and then Neptune there. So I
Yeah.
think yeah, I take your point about that. And you know, the fake version or the meme version of something versus the actual object itself. And I didn't see Barbie, but I did see Oppenheimer. And you know, like you, was like, whoa, I'm ready to get into this fucking film. Like, you know, it's Nolan and I'm ready. And then I don't know, I just found I could only watch it like maybe in 15-minute chunks.
Yeah.
Mm.
It
You know,
felt like a 3-hour car commercial.
but I mean, so again, I wasn't as dazzled as everybody, you know, going on about film of the year. And you know, I appreciated it and stuff.
Oh yeah,
Totally,
it was
great
masterfully
topic.
done.
It made
Yeah.
me very angry, and I feel like the reason that we're talking about these films is because they were the only cultural culturally iconographic moments of the year, I
Well,
suppose.
Exactly.
it was
Yeah,
What they
definitely
Indiana Jones.
cinematically.
what
Yeah.
they yeah, and what they represented. Not only was it interesting that that Hollywood was in shambles at the time with the strike,
Right.
which brings up a lot of the issues that we are dealing with right now, because part of the strike was about the fact that Hollywood has been expecting actual writers to just edit and refine the work of AI language bots, which are now writing movies and stories using algorithms. It's so depressing to even imagine. That was just one of their complaints. There was a lot more to it, but it's a tale as old as time. It's a gigantic corporation, once again, who are the good guys, according to Barbie, um, who is
Well, my God,
exploiting.
Mattel was, you know,
Yeah,
vetted that film, so that they
right.
had to be, you know, presented as good guys.
Exactly. And for me, it just really represented technocratic philosophy
Hmm.
in its deepest and most deceptive sense, because technocracy is built upon the notion that we can have simple, easy, fast solutions to complex problems, and that we don't need to have any universal ethic of any kind, or any kind of like moral compass to follow. Instead, we can just, everything's relative to whatever mood we're in or whatever's going on. And they use a very shallow reading of the desire for a film that represents women in some kind of power. They use a shallow representation of feminine power to hide the poison of the real message, which is that corporations are good, let them exploit you. It's a positive thing. And as
Well,
far as
all
Oppenheimer,
yes, and technocracies are also, there's always an elite that is overseeing them, you know, that we're
right,
supposed to, you know, be in awe of Elon Musk and
very
fucking
much
Zuckerberg.
talking down to people from that, still that
Right.
Capricorn tower, that high horse, that top of the pyramid. And
So
then
back to,
Oppenheimer, oh sorry.
go ahead, finish. I'm sorry,
Well,
Rachel.
Oppenheimer was, to me, it was like, I found it similar in that I found it to be kind of a shallow biography of, we'll just say, an important figure. Um, but also like really, really cowardly in terms of how it actually dealt with the consequences of that atrocity that was committed.
Mm, mm.
In fact, like, just completely ignored it, did not show any of the true consequences.
Like the newsreel footage of Hiroshima.
Like less hard hitting than what was being chewed on or ruminated on even in the 1940s after the war. There was like a heavier meditation on the consequences of Hiroshima and Nagasaki even in the 40s.
Mhm.
And I felt like it was extremely disrespectful considering where we're at. And because film has this quality of glamorizing anything that it touches, I felt like it was an incredibly two-dimensional, one-sided meditation on a truly devastating atrocity. And then I felt like they overblew the McCarthy era stuff. And by that point, I was like, why should anyone feel sorry for Oppenheimer, who lost his security clearance? Like, that was his big discipline.
Well, from what I understand, there was actually a play written about those hearings in Oppenheimer's life, and he saw it, and he was really disappointed at this kind of cult of personality that was forming around him as the scientific martyr
it was
par
it was a
excellence.
shallow reading of an important figure, a complex person, no doubt, and someone who, you know.
And it's also just kind of weird. I mean, I don't want to, go down any rabbit holes. I'm simply just pointing that there's a rabbit hole there. Don't step in it. But it's really weird that, a movie about the guy that created the A bomb was released in a year where the world is inching closer to nuclear war than it's been in, decades.
What I'm trying to
Right.
say is that it was obviously propaganda from the military industrial complex, and Christopher Nolan
I said don't
really,
step in the rabbit hole.
I just,
I said watch out.
no, it's
I
not.
said watch out.
There, it is
We
an
need a sound effect of it
Yeah.
tumbling in a
Yeah.
hole.
it's
Go
an
ahead,
fact.
Rachel. Sorry.
No, Hollywood has always produced war propaganda. There's
That is
nothing new about
that's
that.
no, going back to the silent age, like Chaplin and Mary Pickford were selling war bonds, and
It's the
All
double
of them. Yeah,
sword.
definitely.
There's no doubt about it. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just a fact.
anytime you see a movie, like a big Hollywood movie that has something to do with the military, whether it's a war film or it's a hit, it's a hit, an auto, what's it called, a biopic like Oppenheimer was.
So what I'm trying to say is that if 2023 was about chewing on things, ruminating, yes, responding to a tremendous amount of trauma, which
And also
does
trying to wash the taste out of your mouth.
wash the taste out of your mouth, recover from trauma, heal, develop a deeper sense of understanding. These like shallow, quick reads or hot takes on really important issues that are philosophical and spiritual and social and certainly political. These quick, shallow reads that we got from Barbie and Oppenheimer really point to how toxic the ideology of the Hollywood military industrial complex truly is. Like, those were not deep or philosophical meditations on anything real. In
Well,
fact, I felt that they were to, like, kind of numb things and dumb things down.
mm.
Yeah.
So going back to Andre's original salvo, that was right where Venus turned, retrograde.
Yeah.
Like he was saying, the day, right there in Leo, which is pretty much if there's one sign associated with Hollywood, it's Leo.
Yeah.
Totally.
So that's an interesting, given that journey that Venus, makes with the retrograde, going under and then back up. And
Yeah, she does
here we
her
are.
descent thing.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I think we're on the same page about that, condition of ruminating or versions of PTSD related to 2023. And then it's interesting to look then at the rush of jovial or Jupiterian vibes that will dominate, to me at least, 2024.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. with I think the big one being the Jupiter conjunction to Uranus in March, on late March of the year.
April. Yeah,
It-
April, like it starts in March, but it perfects on April 20th.
oh, okay, great. So,
And
all
then
right.
yeah, we'll feel
It's
that
gonna be a
till
good 420 that year.
um,
But
you know,
I think that, I mean, my take on that is it's something like people like getting a jolt or a reawakening in their body. Like,
for sure. I
yeah,
agree.
coming out of the cyber bubbles and everything. And
Touching grass, as they say on Twitter.
Mhm.
yeah, in a very freedom-making way or liberating way. I mean, Uranus is in the mix for sure, which is tends to be more intellectual, but I think the Taurian aspect makes it, more somatic in our nervous system. And,
Yes.
so I see that as like, I think the big kind of awakening into 2024. Um,
I tend to agree. I've noticed that there's a lot of chatter about Jupiter Uranus that is just it's so overwhelmingly positive that it seems kind of false. It's like
Aspect, yeah.
it's artificially saccharine. You know, like but I do agree with you about the sort of like the awakening of some kind of somatic
Mhm,
awareness.
mhm,
And I also, what I love about that is, to me, it looks like an opportunity to awaken to the bigger questions, the more radical questions about where we're headed and what we really value and what we need in order to thrive as human beings, which is anathema to this increasingly cold, sterile, technocratic age. And so I do believe that in many ways it will be disruptive and probably bring about some chaos. I don't know if it's good for economic stability or not. I could not possibly predict that. It looks like it could go either way. It could be boom, it could be bust, it could be something really detrimental in terms of, I don't know, some kind of, horrific reinvention of currency that causes more problems than it solves. Who knows? But I do think that in terms of our personal and collective evolution, that there will be some awakening of healing in the body, the places that we do hold trauma that prevent us from thinking clearly, from opening up to different ideas. And we definitely are only learning as much as we are asking for. The quality of life is the quality of the questions you're asking. And so
mhm,
Jupiter is always the planet of philosophical expansion. And in Taurus, that tends to be, it's not that Jupiter isn't philosophical in Taurus, but it tends to be something that just ruminates, moves slowly, chews on things for a long time. And because Taurus is typically, rather slow moving and fixed earth is kind of prone to getting stuck in ruts, there is this tendency I've noticed, and I have really felt it, to just kind of loop on familiar territories, loop on familiar patterns, and hoping that familiar patterns will bring you to stability and structure. But when Jupiter conjoins Uranus, there is going to be this breakthrough, some kind of bigger question, some kind of bigger ask, something that will represent opening up to an actual healing or catharsis or revolution in terms of how we find our sense of stability and what we value.
mm.
So the really shallow stuff, like what I read in both Barbie and Oppenheimer, these just shallow reads, these easy answers for complex problems, they're not going to cut it anymore. And I do think that that will be ultimately a positive thing for anyone who's willing to grow. But who knows what it means for the economy? who knows?
Well, I think it doesn't bode well for the economy. And I don't like to make predictions, but I'm just looking at the train of the transit, and it's moving
Yeah,
from the conjunction to a square with Saturn, in August.
yeah,
And that tension between Saturn, Jupiter, at least traditionally, is, challenging to use that word
yeah,
with economics and the stability there.
yeah,
So it seems something with the housing market or tourist type things having to do with land and water and the home markets that could be rattled or
yeah,
whatever. So
totally.
who knows though?
Totally. Wall Street, and I mean it's always unexpected with Uranus.
Well, I mean, don't you guys feel like whenever I read shit about Wall Street, like the other day, it was like stocks, higher than, that they've been like for months and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, does anyone believe this?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure on some level it is true that but God knows what the underpinnings of it all are that are, boosting it up or pumping it up, or, I mean,
Right.
there's so many machinations
Right.
Yeah,
now,
and
you
especially
know,
what we learned after 2008, how this stuff is just so
ah,
it's just a matter of somebody forgetting to like rubber stamp a form or something, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
totally.
exactly.
And
So I agree.
mentioning 2008's a good example because so much of the shit that went down leading up to 2008, all of that's back again. That
Yeah.
they found ways around
Yeah.
all the different roadblocks
Yeah,
to, start doing weird mortgages again. And
Yep.
people, they don't have a job, but they can buy a house. And,
yeah.
it's just too sketchy. So
It's
who
so
knows?
sketchy.
Sky's the limit.
It makes it so hard to read astrologically because
Mm,
lately I've noticed like, if you learn mundane astrology backwards and forwards, it still relies on things being in some kind of integrity, like in order to fully understand how things could play out. When there is so much, and this really is a Pluto and Capricorn phenomena, when there is so much corruption and so much that is hidden and so much that actually is completely irrational going
mhm,
on,
mhm.
when these quote unquote institutions of power follow absolutely no protocol, have abused all authority, are not actually taking responsibility for any of their responsibilities, the word authority is an interesting thing because it's something that almost everyone just cringes at now. And yet in other ages, the word authority represented the concept of someone who was responsible for a particular thing, whether it's a person or a piece of land or a city or a kingdom. The idea of authority is that you're responsible for something, you're looking out for it, you have the burden of being the one that takes care of things and looks out for. And
Right.
since that has been so hideously abused in so many ways in every area of life, and it's certainly become a pronounced theme over the last 14 years since Pluto entered Capricorn. It didn't start then. I'm not saying that the abuse of authority started in 2008. I'm just saying that that's when
Well, it
why
amplified right off
yeah,
the charts. And
absolutely it
yeah,
did. Yeah,
Pluto
it
into
absolutely
Capricorn.
did
Yeah.
because of the way global politics was unfolding and the way that information was unearthing all of these things and making it common knowledge, just common knowledge, what's going on behind the scenes. It's been revelatory and also exhausting and very painful. Um,
So
yeah, but
do you think that again, my take on 2024 is all that Jupiter action, the Uranus conjunction, Jupiter moves into Gemini,
yeah,
Jupiter squares Saturn
yeah,
later in the year. And then it's almost like that's opening the door to Pluto's final ingress into Aquarius.
yeah,
And
exactly.
so I'm wondering, because of the Uranus Jupiter Taurus conflation, like if people really are able to reconnect with their own organic circuitry and not stuff that's coming through their screen, I wonder if, because well, to back it up a little, it seems that Pluto Aquarius has shades of, the technocracy really like ratcheting down.
Yeah.
And and then I'm just thinking there's going to be some kind of, not Luddite revolution, but something where people are just like, no, there's been too much of it
Yeah.
in my life, and I'm going to go do this and return to this or that or whatever. I
Yeah.
mean, what is your take on the whole thing with, well, I mean, it really comes down in a literal way to the AI phenomenon, which
Yeah.
I think will be, in full throttle by the time Pluto gets into
Oh
Aquarius.
yeah, but well, I don't know if it'll be in full throttle by that time, but that's gonna push into full throttle because the latest projections I've heard is I mean we don't even talk about AI anymore. We talk about AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. I am not an expert. I've maybe spent like an hour or two, reading Twitter threads a few weeks ago, so I'm not an expert, but
Yeah.
um but it's artificial general intelligence is what we want, is well not what we want, but that's the outcome of the experiment. Artificial, like what we have now, this AI thing, artificial intelligence is exactly what it sounds like. It's artificial. It's able to mimic speech. It's able to mimic mimic language. It's able to mimic cognition, but it can't actually produce original thought, original content. uh you know it can't, it can't be like, it can't like have its own, it can't reason in a complex way. I forget the exact thing Noam Chomsky said in that article he published in the New York Times, but it was something to the effect of like, it's the difference between like a college professor who um understands to not ask for, if the student has their final because he knows she got into a car accident that morning, and he's able to reason on a more advanced level that, oh, she's got into a car accident, she is in shock, I'm going to give her an extra day, I'm going to give her an extra day or two to turn in her final, versus like, just knowing, just, oh well, the final's due today,
And you're late.
and you're late. Um,
Mhm.
and it wasn't that exact, it wasn't that's just what popped into my mind. And so that's where we are, is just, it's the AI that just, it can mimic, but it has to follow protocol. So artificial general intelligence, to my understanding, is when it can start reasoning at that higher level where it can say, oh, hey, I read your texts today. I saw that you fought with your girlfriend. Do you need someone to talk to? Or would you prefer that I leave you alone? You need to be by yourself, and it would understand that sometimes humans need someone to talk to, but sometimes they just want to be by themselves. And that's projected to be arriving around 2029, 2030.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that would definitely be like the Pluto into Aquarius is definitely gonna hit the first domino for that.
I think the most fascinating thing I came across on this theme was by this guy, Peter Turchin. He's like a sociologist, and his thesis was that the whole AI revolution, what it was really going to impact in the most pronounced way were the elites. And
Mhm.
the point he made was that it's going to throw off kilter the whole legal profession.
Mhm.
Without going into a lot of the granular parts of this thing, he was just saying that it's always like disenfranchised attorneys like Lenin and Castro and Gandhi and Robespierre that have all been the ones that foment the real sociocultural changes because of whatever disruption or has happened to their life, or just how their own theories are put together. But
Yeah.
he sees the whole AI thing, the key area that it'll disrupt is this thing in the culture now where there's literally too many lawyers that are competing for too few jobs. And then so, the
Many
chat
MCs, not enough mics.
PT comes in and does a lot of the, grunt work that those lower rung attorneys would be doing. So they're out of work. And then this whole thing starts to foment, which who knows, what the outcome of that's going to be. But that was the most fascinating thing. It's not workers at Target or Walmart.
Yeah.
It's going to disrupt, but that the upper realm of certain elites. And I found that fascinating.
Well, we already sort of
Very
experienced
well.
that with the Hollywood strike, where both the screen actors and the not that screen actors or screenwriters are elite at all, but they definitely serve the elites.
Mhm.
And we saw that because like one of the as Rachel said earlier, that one of the main talking points of the writer's strike was the use of
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
in writing in creating content, and then with screen actors was that there was essentially there was no legal protection against their likeness being used in perpetuity long after they're dead.
right.
So we could expect to see like Indiana Jones, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Exactly.
up to up to 8, 108,
Right.
Yeah.
and it was like it it was cool to see that it was Hollywood that was actually like they were putting on a performance of what the battle would be. Does that make sense? Like they were acting out what humankind must do in
Mhm.
response to this this disruptive technology.
Right. Right.
Well,
Yeah, it was a good opening shot and prelude. They were got the jump on it
Yeah.
because you can see he's. I mean, you've seen these things online already where someone's face is put on. It could be like a porn star's body with
Hmm.
Jennifer Lawrence's face meticulously morphed on there. Doing some sex scene or whatever. You can imagine what
Yeah.
like a big studio could do with that.
Oh yeah, totally. Like that's why it was like I forget it was one of the it was like one of the classics the guys from like that classic era, like the 70s New Hollywood era. I don't think it was like Al Pacino. Maybe it was like Dustin Hoffman or Richard Dreyfuss or something spoke out against it, where they hadn't really been saying much in the media. Nobody's been tuning into Richard Dreyfuss's opinions for the last, 20, 30 years since Mr. Holland's Opus came out. And I was like, wow. And he was really thoughtful. And you could tell, it wasn't something like his publicist or his agent told him to say. He was really just it was in a way it was cringe because it just sounded like some old timer who's really out of touch, but he was really speaking from the heart about
Yeah,
the dangers of this rising technology and what it's going to do, not just for the Screen Actors Guild, but for all for humanity in a sense. And like you pointed out, it's the lawyers that kind of have that view of humanity in terms of law and order, weights and measures, and they have a a very like a crystal clear picture of when things are getting imbalanced.
yep, yeah,
they have a very special and deep initiation into the letter of the law, so they actually have this order and structure with words
Hmm.
that they become like possessed by when it's out of order. But there's something to this Jupiter Uranus conjunction in Taurus that I do believe is going to, I do think it will kind of split things apart further,
mm,
especially followed by Jupiter in Gemini, which is the twins. It's also a debilitated Jupiter. It's going to kind of really even more starkly divide the ideological camps. And at
Yeah.
this point, I look at it, I do not care about Republican, Democrat, or Tories, or what is the other?
Labor.
Yeah, Labor and
Labor. Yeah.
whatever. That all of that is dissolving and, becoming calcinated and completely transformed. Those words are becoming so meaningless in that they don't mean what we thought. The definition has changed. It's just so murky. But the real ideological camps is going to be like, are you actually seeking to discover your humanity through, as you said, reconnecting to your circuitry? Whatever that means to you, like actually acknowledging the body as significant, number one, instead of living a completely disembodied existence. Learning how to reason, once again, reason and compare, read things deeply, actually ask bigger and better questions, and nourish your humanity with things that you actually require, which includes not just food and shelter and comfort, but also, truth and beauty and wisdom. And the thing that, AI algorithm stories lack, no matter how much data they try to, work with,
True. Yeah.
they're not telling stories that are true. And that's something that you cannot teach a machine. And it really is a subtle thing that you have to be human to understand. And a story doesn't have to be factual to be true either.
Right.
There is plenty of truth in fiction. In fact, there's sometimes more truth in fiction and mythology than in any factual news report. And
Yeah.
I'm even talking about a news report that actually is reporting the facts. I just mean truth is something that we need. There is nourishment that we require in order to be not just like to survive physically, but also to thrive and to build and create and enjoy life, to create connection and joy in life. So there's going to have to be a philosophical revolution that actually does do something syncretic, because we can't just, I know there's such a desire to just go back to the ancient ways, whether it is the neo-pagan thing, the archaic revival neo-pagan stuff, or getting super into ayahuasca and getting into shamanic traditions, which all of these things are fine, or getting into super traditional Orthodox Christianity, which goes back to the original teachings of the scriptures. All of these
Or
things,
make America great again. I mean, it's
right? I
the
mean,
same
all of these things
thing that you're
are,
talking about.
it's actually like understandable in a time like such as this, why people go back. And it's fine to go back because Aquarius is about building a future that is deeply informed by the past, that actually is enriched by wisdom from the past, even the ancient past,
It's like
because
the books you saved from the fire.
Aquarius is so far out there in the zodiac. It's the 11th sign in the zodiac. And so by this time, the zodiac is the story of the evolving logos, the evolution of consciousness itself. And so the idea of linear time, just backwards and forwards, certainly the linear time that everything in the technocratic world is built upon, that does not exist. Time is revealed to be a circle in Aquarius because it's so far outside of the status quo. It sees from a distance. It has such an interdimensional quality as well. And so it's not bound to one line of thinking or one line of time. And so the ancient traditions, ancient customs, ancient wisdom is tapped into and brought into the present to build the future. This does not mean that we just demolish everything that we have and built and go back to living the way we did in the medieval era, although that's such a romantic idea. I get it, but like we actually have to create a syncretism, the same as any major cultural shifts. Like when you think about how, for example, Christianity took over Rome. And it happened because Rome, as like the imperial civilization, which was certainly pagan, that civilization began to weaken and crumble for a myriad of reasons. That's a whole another debate. I asked ChatGPT once what caused the fall of Rome, and it gave me the dumbest, most basic bitch answers. So that's another example of how lame AI is.
Well, it
But
is now.
anyways, so Rome was weakened and this other movement is rising, and the two syncretized. And that was something that happened because it was required to evolve to meet the
So, okay,
needs
but
of
how do you see that, like, bring that forward to what we're all living through now? Like
so
this,
actually
sort of
just
like,
keeping technology in check, understanding what technology is, number one, evolving a sense of respect for philosophy, ethics, wisdom, traditions that actually are a blend of times and a blend of cultures. Something that actually represents a syncretism between the glut of information and technology that we have and what it is to actually be human, not actually losing your humanity entirely in this new, I guess, the new religion of transhumanism, or technocratic transhumanism, which
mhm.
is, it's a pretty crazy religion. I mean, as far as I could tell, we are told that some people believe that their consciousness can be uploaded to a cloud and they can live forever in some digital ether, which is totally like the most out there Aquarian stuff. But then I go, why would anyone really believe that? It's like if you can record brainwaves and you can record memories, which is so esoteric and strange. I can't even imagine how they could do that. But let's just say that some kind of machine can probe into your mind, probe into your body, and actually record the memories that you have. And this is assuming that your memories are in your brain or actually some brain waves that could be recorded. Even still, it's not that different than a photograph or even writing things down on a page. So the idea that you live forever in the page or in the photograph, it's kind of poetic, but it's really literal and kind of primitive, you know? So I feel like this religious movement is going to have to like, it's going to bring some extremists into it, but I don't think many people are going to buy that. I don't think many people want that. I don't think that's inspiring to the masses. I don't think we want to live inside a computer. Like, I really don't think that's where most people want to go. We don't want to live in virtual reality or live forever in the cloud.
Well, how's a person going to fit in a laptop? I mean, it's just physically impossible.
So yeah, I think there's gonna have to be like a sort of like human syncretism with technology, not technology merging with humans to make us robotic, but instead a sort of taming of this force. That's what I
Mm,
think.
I
mm,
Yeah,
interesting.
A taming of the force.
Frederick, do you have anything to add? Because I've got a hot take coming through.
I would just say to Rachel's points, I think I think there's going to be some kind of division that happens that's pretty extreme
Yeah,
between
totally.
like what she's outlining and the, say bulk of humanity that are, still hooked in on that techno frenzy, because that it is seductive to so many people. But I think that there's going to be a splintering, and then there's going to be almost like these monastic circles of people that have kind of fallen out, and then they'll foment some new kind of cultural shifts and changes while all of this other shit's going down.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I mean,
what's your hot take?
yeah. We should get some like fajita sound effects for this.
Crackling log on the fire.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hot take coming through. So, well, I feel compelled to mention it. normally I might just keep my mouth shut and let the conversation move on, but because it is the man's birthday on the date that we're recording this, I wanted to bring this up. So today's Philip K. Dick's birthday. It's December 16th.
Very
The day that
cool.
we're recording this. You're probably not listening to it, and you're listening to it in the future, which is very apropos for a science fiction author.
Especially for Dick. Yeah.
Yeah, so he wrote this essay. I think it's one of his greatest works. It was actually a lecture he gave at, I think it was the University of Toronto. I'm not sure, in 1972. And the essay is called "The Android and the Human." And he, it's it's an epistemological philosophical argument
Hmm.
on what it make the difference between human consciousness and artificial intelligence. And that's all, that's what the Philip K. Dick scholars say, is that his work is a big long examination of examination of the question, what is human and what is real. um and so he opens it up with this really beautiful observation that, post enlightenment psychology sees the so-called primitive mind as that, as being crippled by animism, that it's animated its environment, that it believes that rocks and trees and birds and bees and mountains and rivers are the same as people.
Right.
And that in order for that to be cured, for them to become sophisticated, for them to be cured of that juvenile primitive superstition, they must come to understand that those are just objects, and that you as the subject are actually creating that reality. um but then he turns that around and he says, well, then haven't they also, if they've taken the humanity out of the personhood out of rocks and trees, and all of the things in God's green earth, haven't they also taken the humanity out of themselves? Haven't they also taken the humanity out of their friends, and so that they themselves have just become objects, so that their friends have just become objects?
Mm.
And he goes on to say this is like a kind of, this is a function of the technological world, this technocratic world that we've been talking about, where it's been this slow removal, like, of the onion layers of personhood and personification. I mean, Rachel and I, we talk about our Christmas tree like it's a person. We give it a name. We ask it how it's doing. We get into dialogue for it. It's completely irrational. You know what I mean? But it gives a deeper meaning to our relationship, to our household, to things like that. This is something that a machine could never understand, you know?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
so the more that but the more that we just, say, like, just make millennial jokes about how, it's the corpse of a pine bush, and we don't actually treat it as a real living spirit. The more you're becoming just susceptible to being an empty vessel for this kind of this techno wash, for the algorithm. And I won't go on much. It's a really I really recommend everybody just Google it. The Android and the Human. I'll put a link in the description below. It's really deep. It's really intricate. But what I absolutely love about it is what he says the antidote to this is. What he says is going to be, who's going to be the vanguard in the fight against this. Is the miscreant youth, the malcontent youth, which we could get into another discussion about the trends of the delinquency trends in the Xennial generation. But what he does is he gives this example of a woman, and I love this too, because, like, this just totally sounds like something my batshit crazy golden hearted Sag mom would have done. But he gives a story of this woman that was she followed around a Coca-Cola delivery truck all day as it went through the San Francisco Bay. And because she noticed at the first stop, this guy would just leave the door open every time he'd go in for a delivery. So she went and grabbed a flat of Coke. She went and grabbed a pallet of Coke and threw it in her trunk. And she did this all day, from Hayward all the way up to the North Bay. And she got, she that for that entire year, everybody would just go over to her house and she had free Coke for everybody. You know, everybody was just drinking free Coke. And so what he says is like a machine would never do anything so irrational as just call off their entire plan all day to steal Coke from the back of a Coke delivery truck. That
Right.
that
Well,
like that it's that willingness to actually just do, you know, do the absurd, do the irreverent thing, not because you're actually fighting for you're fighting for any moral cause, that you're fighting for any activist cause, any social justice cause, just because, you know, it's wrong and you're impulsive and, you know,
and you have an imagination. That's the
yeah,
key. That this shit with the machines, there's no imagination. Whatever imagination is, I don't even think it's definable. It's like consciousness.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
They
and
don't. There's no, like Rachel's saying, they can churn all these books out and stuff, but there's no imaginative force that
exactly.
No.
it,
No. Yeah. And so I agree with Philip K. Dick that, you know, when we speak of imagination, yes, we should consider the Walt Disneys and the Einsteins and the Steve Jobs. But you know, we should also consider, you know, the delinquent youth, you know,
okay. Yeah.
just
Miscreant you.
yeah, the miscreant youth just,
That's
you know,
right.
dumping a trash can in a cop car because they felt like it,
Mhm.
you know?
Well, okay, so then we're back to some of the Jupiter stuff in the 2024 with it in Gemini, which is really the, you know, the adolescent, the youth sign squaring Saturn that'll follow. So you've got the miscreant youth going up against the old time Saturnine people. So I think that's something in
Yeah.
keeping theme today. And then quickly, I would just add, going back to what I said about Chat GPT and attorneys. That's the other thing with Jupiter sliding all through the year. That's the sign of the legal profession or the planet related to legality and justice and attorneys and lawyers and all of that jurisdiction is
Mhm.
Jupiter. So I think, I don't know, we might see this fomenting revolution coming from disenfranchised lawyers
Yeah.
because
I totally
robots have
agree.
taken their jobs.
Yeah.
I
I'm
would
curious. I'm down for that.
I would say also like anyone
Bad
taking like a
attorneys.
modern priest class, like that would include doctors.
Oh, right. Jupiter.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like the priests of today are like the doctors and the lawyers and certainly there's actual priests left as well, actual, healers and priests and lawyers and doctors. There's probably going to be a lot of that. I definitely agree. Gemini also is, I don't know how there could be more issues with the media, but it definitely looks like a crazy media war of some kind. Like,
You know, we'll have Trump 24/7 unless he's dead by the start. But I mean, that'll
But even
just,
if he is, it could be a
yeah,
deep fake.
yeah.
oh, God, totally. Like, yeah, Trump would deny his own death from being
A
Yeah.
on
deep
the grave.
fake.
Yeah.
There
It's
probably will be
fake
some
news.
fake
Yeah. Yeah,
scandal.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Like this, yeah,
Totally.
there could be just some
So,
kind of he's got an early Neuralink prototype, and the second that it registers, flatline,
right,
the deep fake
it
takes to the
awakens
Truth Social account
from the
to let us all
QAnon
know.
rabbit hole.
Yeah.
So
The
this leads to the damnable question.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do,
The thing
do
we've
I
been
tech,
the thing we've been dancing around this whole
yeah, well,
time.
do we just, should it be broached or
Oh, it has to be. I mean,
okay?
it's an elephant. It's in the living room. And eventually
So
we got to go to sleep, so
we
we got
could
to deal with it.
maybe we could do like a deeper dive later, but the end of the year looks absolutely horrible, and I really wish I mean it. Like I don't normally like
sounded like a Jewish
I
princess.
was gonna say
I really made it
you gotta put the emphasis on the ha. You gotta do the she does it really well because her family's
Oh my
from
God.
Brooklyn. You gotta do it.
I'm
You
not gonna do
do
that.
it.
Oh,
You gotta do it. Just do the horrible. Do it the way you do it.
All right. It looks horrible, everybody. I really just can't. I'm actually scared. I really am. I mean, I don't mean like I'm scared for my life, but here's the thing. The beginning of the year, January, it opens on January 4th with Mars moving into Capricorn. That's really powerful Mars, exalted. He returns to visibility in the morning sky. And so
mm,
But then the year ends with Mars going retrograde in the first few degrees of Leo and moving back into Cancer, which looks
Mhm.
so ugly. And not only that, but in November, so November 3rd, we have Mars in Cancer, which is his sign of great debility. He does not like being in Cancer. It tends to bring out a rather monstrous quality. And it opposes Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn. So we have that anaretic degree, Capricorn, Pluto, Mars, Cancer, that ugly opposition. And that's the opposite of where we started the year at, which is
Right,
really dark because we
right.
begin the year actually with a tremendous amount, I feel like a tremendous amount of gravitas and a sense of the desire to build something, to build ourselves up, to strategize. There's momentum behind
Yeah, inspiration. Yeah.
inspiration, momentum. Yeah, it's a really wonderful first half of the year in many, many ways. And I think a lot of, inspiration to up level, to reach higher. And then where we end up by November 3rd is, we've been enduring a really painful Mars and Cancer transit. And then that opposition to Pluto in Capricorn is like some final showdown.
What is the date on that
That's
opposition?
November 3rd.
Oh, Jesus.
November
Isn't
3rd.
that election day?
November 5th. So
Oh,
November
oh.
4th, then Mars moves into Leo. Okay, and Mars, by the way, is the ruler of this season because this is all Scorpio season. So there you
Mhm.
go. Um, so his motions are particularly strong and
Mm.
powerful and negative in this case. And then November 5th, we still have that lingering opposition between Mars in now Leo and Pluto at 29 degrees Capricorn. By
Oh,
or I should say November 19th, Pluto finally moves back into Aquarius.
right.
For the final time, we'll stay in Aquarius now for, 19 years. Um, and then by December 6th, we have Mars stationing retrograde at 6 degrees Leo. And by inauguration day, whatever happens, we have a very difficult Mars retrograde in Cancer, and we have Pluto and the Sun conjoined. So it looks really, really
And that's
dark.
fucking inauguration day, Sun Pluto.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus. I'm moving to Mark Zuckerberg's camp in Kauai and
Yeah. It,
getting
it
his
looks like a
bunker
really,
that's being built there.
I'm just gonna hide on the metaverse. I'm gonna get my
Oh,
VR headset on
man.
the whole time, and
Okay, so how you guys, we can't leave the listener with us going, oh, fuck me. Like, okay, so how do we unpack this for the novice
oh,
listener?
oh,
Um,
I need some assistance because as I
a
said before,
Xanax is what you
no
need.
assistance, although I probably would need a Xanax too, but
yeah, yeah. You
Oh,
need Zanny the nanny.
like the actual the thing that really blocks me from being able to see clearly is the fact that Pluto and Capricorn, to me, my observation of things has been you cannot actually predict how corrupt and how duplicitous and how
the depth of it, yeah.
yeah, the depth of the corruption and the levels that will be gone to
Hmm.
in order to maintain a grip on power. No,
Hmm.
I'm unable to feel a particular prejudice or a particular regard for either one of the parties in the United States. I see them as the same people. Like, so I don't know what the astrology says in terms of who's going to win. Okay, I really don't. Either way, whoever does win, it does not matter who wins, there's going to be like war over it. So certainly there's going to be another election scandal. There's going to be another huge uprising,
Yeah.
some kind of.
Did you, just to jump track a bit because it popped in my mind, did you see A24's new film that's coming out?
No, what is it?
It's called Civil War.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
It's all a prelude to what we are edging into here with this end of the year
Well, what about
transits. And
have you heard about Obama's new movie?
are you serious?
Yeah, Leave the World Behind. He produced it. Him and Michelle, they were executive producers. It's based on like his favorite book of the last decade.
yeah.
It's directed by the guy that did Mr. Robot.
Oh my God, was Julia Roberts in this?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just saw that fucking film. It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
I've only
guys
heard
see it?
about it. No, I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah,
I'm
nothing is resolved. I'm not going to spoil much for anybody because the narrative's so non-narrative. But yeah, that was, I mean, just say it just left you with wonky gonzo impressions, like one after the other, as the
Mhm.
film unwinds
how
and
how was it in terms of just like general quality and viewer enjoyment?
I was pretty riveted to it.
Okay. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I will check it out. We're doing, we're binging on Christmas rom-coms right now, but
Oh my,
in that no man's land between Christmas
right.
and New Year's, well, we'll check it out. But
Well,
yeah,
so
the A24 and it's I mean, again, there's another rabbit hole over yonder where you can get into the whole like predictive programming revelation of the method. I always raise an eyebrow at that. I just think that yes, I think industry and policy definitely inform popular media, but I also do think there's just a natural, the artist has a natural response to the culture they live in.
Mhm.
right,
You know,
yes.
where it's like, I mean,
Canaries in the coal mine. Yeah.
yeah, where it's just like, this is what the guy from Mr. Robot is reflecting on. The guy that did Mr. Robot is reflecting on in the modern world.
Well,
Now
and look
it's
up the trailer for Civil War. I forget
I
who
will.
directed, but it
Yeah.
is blood chilling because it's
Yeah.
all, people moving around the country with each other and then confronting.
Well, and
Mhm.
I read that I heard a few nights ago that A24 has actually completely changed their business model. Did you hear about this?
Well, I know they got to work through the strike because they met everybody's objectives, which I thought was pretty cool.
There was that, but they're apparently like they are abandoning auteur driven indie cinema in favor of IP IP franchises and action flicks. So they're gonna lean more into, I guess, the everything everywhere all the time style.
Oh, God, help
And
me.
I guess they just put out like a Jason, like a Friday the 13th Crystal Lake TV streaming series.
I can't believe I love that company.
I well, it's this was an enduring debate we had in film school, was like auteur theory versus genre theory. Because when I got to film school, I was all, I was raised on 90s indie cinema, and it was, to me, there was nothing but the auteur. It was all Hitchcock and Richard Linklater and Paul Thomas Anderson. Um, but once you start getting into like what, there are enduring debates about what great cinema is, and there's like this idea that, like, no, it's not about the auteur, it's not about the author, it's about the genre that they work in. So
And
it's
that's where
interesting.
they're leaning, you're saying,
Yeah. So
A24.
it's interesting that they're doing this thing where they're just taking the other side in the film, the film criticism debate, with working more in the genre, the genre mode than the auteur mode. But both allow, because I mean Ari Aster and Rob Eggers are both horror filmmakers, you know. Um, and so just because they're gonna just maybe putting out emphasizing the genre aspect more doesn't mean that they're not gonna be a platform and a playground for auteurs to discover, develop,
Mm.
and refine their voice.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, wow.
Yeah.
So going back
Yeah.
to, I mean, just to, because this seems like this fart that's gotten let loose at the airwaves with the, I'm just thinking, what Rachel broached about the November 3rd Mars opposition to Pluto. That I sort of read as Mars like kicking, Pluto's ass into Aquarius. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like it's the, because it moves in there like in a couple weeks after that opposition. So it's like this final, like, burst of something, or like a homeopathic thing that's injected, a bit of the toxicity that gives it one last push, right? And
Yes.
then maybe that, could bring up the great parts of Pluto, the transformative, healing, regenerative, whatever.
Mhm.
But the thing that I wasn't aware of was the inauguration chart with Pluto Sun conjunction.
Oof.
Yeah.
That is pretty chilling,
Yeah.
just, for what inaugural charts are about, and the figurehead being the sun, Pluto being death. I, I don't care if it's Biden or Trump or Marjorie Taylor Greene who's up there. It's definitely an infusion of the Plutonic, vibes,
Yeah.
like coming through whatever the leadership is and setting the tenor for that, administration.
Yeah. It
You
it
guys, what do you say?
it says to me that the the office, the government, everything that, we think of as institutional power will be utterly transformed, devastated, but perhaps regenerated as well. There's always that, like
Well,
positive.
could it, I mean, it just could be like the corporatocracy or whatever, just completely
Yeah.
takes over at that point. And then
It,
it's the president, just this puppet tool,
yeah. It could
it,
certainly indicate that because Pluto is that shadow, you know, um, that actually stamps out the sun, which is the representation of the leader, the monarch, whatever, the
so
leader.
so Biden is so Scorpio laden. If you've seen his chart,
Hmm.
that could be a bit of a fit for him getting a second term with the Pluto sun. Maybe I'm kind of grabbing straw.
I can't see that because I really don't know. I really don't know. It would certainly align with the idea of a completely empty shell
Mm-hmm.
being
Yeah, right.
propped up
Like
and
I walked with a zombie.
yeah, like truly madly deeply a zombie and not a metaphor. Like I
That
think
really is a great description of the last 4 years.
yeah, and
And
of
that's a
course,
great film to
It
see.
is. Yeah, great example of genre film.
but then there's also like the reality that it also appears that there's tremendous opposition like immediately after
Mm, mm.
the election, way more intense than any other time that we've had oppositions
Oh my
after.
God. I mean, Trump's loss was like a preamble then, when he lost, and then what we had to endure, that he claimed it was rigged and fake, and, the shit we went through there.
This looks
So,
serious. And who knows? I mean, there's also the potential that it might not necessarily be internal strife. It could be strife from outside that immediately comes in and starts
right,
causing
right.
tremendous that points out like the weakness in the administration. Either way, it's difficult to actually make a prediction. It's really up to like flipping a coin ultimately at
What
this
does your
point.
gut say?
My gut says that um I think that I think that Donald Trump's going to win, but then there's going to be some kind of war about it. And I don't know why or how or what that means. That's what
Mhm.
it looks like to me.
So I think, and we'll be right back after this message. No, I think that I think there's some fucking wild card thing coming down the pike through the year. Because then when I really, from, I don't know what you want to call it, I don't see myself as psychic or whatever, but
Right, right.
whatever that kind of visionary thing that leans into the future,
Mhm.
I I get like there's some wild card that is coming, or I don't know, maybe it's wishful thinking, like, like
You mean a
just,
wild card candidate?
well, or
Or
something, or
or in a
some
wild card
event,
event.
or
I mean,
Yeah.
somebody's dead, or
Yeah. Oh,
I,
totally.
or the yeah, no, I totally get that. That
Exactly. Which is why I feel very, I do not want to make strong predictions or tell people what I really
I know,
think.
well, right. And
it
to
Yeah.
be completely transparent, beneath that whatever vision I have at more baseline, I think Trump is going to be reelected.
yeah,
Totally.
and
I mean, there's some really simple things. This is not advanced astrology. Jupiter is going to be in Gemini. That's the top of his charts.
And Saturn's ascending his
Yeah,
chart, and
exactly. And he also
Biden's a
has,
creator. My God.
I think he is a Mars in Leo
yeah,
on the ascendant as well.
Right.
at that it's like, isn't it at the like the one of those late degrees of Leo too?
You know, I don't know.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
26, I think. But, looking at, again, Jupiter, Uranus sets it up in the year, then gets into Gemini, the factions get,
Mm.
you know, imbued and inspired,
Yes.
Civil War style. Like,
So let's
you
just go with
know,
this for a moment. Let's
the
just orient
miscreant youth, we
ourselves.
need them out on the streets more than ever. And then, of course, Jupiter out of Gemini with that division squares Saturn.
Yeah,
So
in
the
December as well.
tension just is popping, you know.
Exactly. So let's just say for a hypothetical uh depiction of this, let's say that Donald Trump becomes reelected and the sort of the Mars in Leo vibe is the sense of like triumph and victory and
Yes,
celebration. It's that solar sign that's associated with leaders and monarchs from all ages of
yes.
mundane astrology. And then just a month after the election, Mars stations retrograde in Leo and starts moving towards another opposition,
Hmm.
Pluto. And then the Jupiter Saturn square occurs. So Jupiter retrograde in Gemini squared to Saturn in Pisces.
Right.
That just looks like such a rock and a hard place. Like nothing is, whatever celebration there might be is going to be uh stopped in its tracks.
So,
Interrupted.
yeah. So, Andre, and we'll be right back after this message. No, I'm kidding.
Hey there again. It's me, Andre. I wanted to take a minute to remind you that Rachel is hosting a live stream on the Astrology of 2024 on New Year's Eve at 1 in the afternoon California time. Doors don't open until next week, but Rage listeners get to cut in line and register early so that they can beat the crowd. When you join today, you will get one ticket to Rachel's New Year's Eve 2024 live stream, where she's going to give her in-depth forecast for the year ahead. But you're also going to get an MP3 recording of your 2024 horoscope. In fact, you're going to get MP3 recordings of all 12 signs so that you'll know how the transits of next year are going to affect you personally. And you can also warn your friends and family. Plus, you're also going to get a PDF guide to the astrology of 2024 so that no transit, retrograde, or lunation will take you off guard. There are only 100 spots available in this live stream, and it started filling up super fast when Rachel opened early registration to her list. So who knows by the time this episode airs how many spots are going to be left. But if you want to take a chance and see if there's still a spot from you, you can visit aeolianheart.com/NYE 2024. Or you can just click on the link in the description box. Let's get back to the show. We're back. Where were we?
Frederick was
This
on.
is the longest Rage in Aquarius
Yeah.
podcast. I just, before you give your thing, Andre, your reading or prediction, I guess I'll use that word. I saw an article on this theme in the Wall Street Journal yesterday, and its subtitle was, for election 2024, you asked for it, America. A reminder of what a depraved, decadent, backward, low-minded, primitive, superstitious, and morally corrupt people we have become.
That's right. I completely agree. And that's one thing that I believe is the sort of spiritual development that is available this year as a result of all of this, strife and all of these reminders of how morally bankrupt and dissolved we've become. Jupiter Uranus, just to go back to that for a second, is an opportunity to actually ask some deeper questions and look
Totally.
for some more meaning in life outside of just
Totally. Get the brain fucking moving
the
and
brain and the
engaged.
heart back on.
Yes.
Which would never be confused about whether you could be replaced by AI or not. Like, I can't even believe anyone fears
Well,
that.
the attorneys do it.
Certainly it's going to cause problems, but like your humanity should not be threatened by a machine. Like, truly,
Right.
madly, it's crazy to think that you are threatened by a machine or that you feel less than a computational device or a language model.
So, Andre, give it up.
What are my predictions?
Yeah, for the election 20, yeah.
All right. Well, again, to avoid the to avoid any rabbit holes, what I will, I'll say that I don't know if there are people that are, pulling the strings behind the show, but if there are, and they blow their chance to have some kind of like really big season finale next year. If it really is something as simple as, Biden, or, well, Biden, he ended up running and he ended up pulling through, or
He's the best
there
man
was
for the
that, yeah,
job.
nope, it was the, Trump made his comeback. And I I definitely lean more towards the kind of an anomalous black swan type of event that you were indicating
Okay, so we're
earlier.
on that page.
Yeah, I'm like, it just, terms of storytelling, man, that's just going to tell a better story. Like, and then, but, it's that thing about that Trey Parker and Matt Stone have on the about when they taught the storytelling seminar at NYU. It's, if at any point two scenes of your story are connected by an and then, you have a bad story. Everything, all the scenes need to be connected by a but or a therefore.
Discursive.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Trump or Biden they're both an and then, whereas this anomalous black swan type of thing that's the but, that's the therefore. So that's my prediction for 2024. And my prescription is to shoplift more Coca-Cola.
This book by Abby Hoffman.
Yeah, trash, dump a trash can on a cop car for no other reason than it was there and you felt like it. Yeah, just let the machine know that it's never gonna control your behavior because you
Yes.
can always movie hop. You are not beholden to sit in the seat that you bought through fandango.com.
So, I mean, I'm looking at, I just quickly put up Trump's chart and then the November 3rd, oh no, it's November 5. It's,
Mm-hmm.
didn't you say, Rachel?
Yes,
It's election day.
that's what I heard. Yeah.
That's the word on the street.
Yep.
But it's wild. Jupiter in Gemini exactly conjunct Trump's Sun and North Node conjunction.
Yeah, it looks like a good time for him to
Uranus,
ride.
but Uranus exactly conjunct his midheaven. So it's this crazy Trumpian Gemini thing, like, yes, but no,
Sure.
yes, but
Yeah.
no.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
Pluto is like by transit, it's at 29 Capricorn. And of course, that's pulling in his Saturn Venus a bit by opposition.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, it's oy,
He thrives with that kind of
madness. Yeah.
yeah, the more contradiction and the
Yeah.
more chaos there is, the more he thrives, you
Yeah.
know?
I would
Yeah.
say like whatever happens,
Pray.
the bubble's gonna get popped. The triumph and celebration is gonna be thwarted by something really big. But remember, ultimately, like what is happening, it is what it is, and it is something that is a transition between eras.
Sure.
The Enlightenment era has to evolve or end at some point, and we cannot live like, you know, totally divorced from spirit as strict dogmatic materialists with a complete lack of sense forever. And so whatever this era represents, it's a transition time. It's a part of
Well,
the transformation.
yes. And, and then I guess election day being, I mean, Pluto's at fucking 29, 47 Capricorn
Yeah.
on election day. So it's like the final dregs of that, long transit through dismantling, infrastructure, power structures, corporations, and everything unleashed as those were like being challenged.
Yeah.
It's that we have like that's our election days. We're getting the last dregs at 29 Capricorn.
Yep.
I mean, it's talk about I walk with a zombie. Like,
Yeah.
Jesus. I
The
mean,
final reveal of whatever Pluto and
well,
Capricorn
well,
wants
yeah,
us.
and both Trump and Biden, they're both just so representative of just this old, spent, you know, debauched kind of thing. So it's no accident that we don't have younger candidates or people more inspiring. Well, people would say Kennedy is, that ilk, but he's
Yeah.
not going to be winning. But, you know, it, it's just, boy, we're just really getting it rubbed in our face.
Yeah.
I
The
feel like
dregs, I'll call it.
this opens up the future for different people like Kennedy or those that follow more in the third party perspectives
Well,
can
or
follow.
do you think it's just people just see through it all now and realize we're not really living in nation states anymore. We're living in a global, corporatocracy that really, I mean, the thing of nation states and all of that is just sort of like a stage set.
Mm-hmm.
The bigger machinations are all, going on, where all the money is, where the power is, the
Yeah,
brokers making the deals, uh,
yeah.
you know, uh, I mean, to me, that seems like a real simplistic but actually accurate reading of the world we're living in now. And the
And
rest is just sort of, let's put on a show, like we'll have an election. have a president
Right. I mean,
that, you know,
there is that element of it as well, that this is a pretty shallow level of power in the world we live today and live in today. You know, the president does not have absolute power. The president is a figurehead.
Mm-hmm.
so
Now,
what's erupting
Or
in
joystick.
people on the tribal level? Like if you look at Israel, Palestine, like what, like, I mean, because this is so ancient and so tribal and so vicious.
hmm,
And you know, just it's basically like forms of genocide that are raging, you know,
yeah.
like what is going what's going on, you know, with humanity? Or is it the oldest story ever told, where one tribe can't deal with another tribe and they're animalistic, and you know, this is we're you know, stuck in the same vector.
I feel like that is definitely true. That's one way to look at it, very simply. And just to recognize that when you do look at history, what we have in recorded history is that. Um, but there's also, you know, the shock and dismay sometimes comes from the mythology of the West, which has been, you know, that we're on a path of progress that will never stop. You know,
Yeah, the
the
Western
more,
arc.
yeah, the more technology and democracy we can support, the more progress we will experience. Therefore, the more utopian society will become. And these horrific battles and wars and genocide missions are, you know, anathema to that view, and therefore they seem so shocking and so scary, and they are, but at the same time, I think what it's revealing is just how false, artificial, and fragile the, you know, the paradigm of the late 20th century, I guess everything since World War II, that Western liberal democracy and everything that it represented being the end of history and the final solution, a scary term, the final solution to tribalism and wars and skirmishes, and again, easy solutions to complex problems, you know.
But
And
something you say there really triggered me in a interesting way. Like, I think it is like, you know, going to the idea of the Western, you know, the Aristotelian storytelling arc, which
mhm.
Western cultures, you know, and then of course we're just living through the horrors of it. There's more homeless people now, I read, than ever.
Yeah,
And you know, a small group of people have all the, you know, money in the world
yeah,
right now. And so and that, I think this is what hopefully will collapse with the Pluto Aquarian transit. And you know, as we're sitting here talking about this death of this Aristotelian arc, I think that is like Pluto at 29 Capricorn, you
yeah,
know, because
Yeah.
that's the whole thing, going from the bottom up to the top, that arc. You know, you
yes,
get up, everything's better. Yeah, for like five people.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
So, yeah, I think that's what I'm getting out of this inquiry today, is I think that is, you know, collapsing. And what we're going to have to endure at the end of 2024 is really the prelude to that final exhalation. I mean, not that everything's going to transform overnight, but there,
Oh,
that shoe will have fallen. That's
certainly.
what I'm getting here.
I
And
think
if it
so.
takes Trump again, I guess it's like taking a puppy and rubbing its face and where it's shit, you know.
I feel like, you know, if you can endure Biden, you should be afraid of nothing. Like, we should fear nothing. And,
Well, a
and
lot of people would argue with that, but
I
yeah.
also, I also, you know, the return to the end of the Enlightenment has got to happen at some point. And on one level, it was the end result of the Aristotelian narrative, and at the other level, it was an inversion of some of those ideas that have created a sense that we are now untethered from anything that would harken back to
Hmm.
the qualitative
Hmm.
level of reality, which you can call many things. Let's just call it qualitative to be philosophical, but I mean imagination, spirit, soul, like 80% of human experience deleted from reality to give us the cold hard material world. And not only that, but just kind of an inversion of any sense of just natural hierarchies of goodness, like the value of things like life and love and, beauty and truth. These things have just like been deleted or just made so relative and abstract that they have no place.
Well, it's like Andre was saying about memes and the whole thing with Barbenheimer, how
Yeah.
actually the ideas about it and stuff, were seemed more vital than the actual thing itself.
Mm-hmm.
And that, to your point about life and beauty and love, it's like all that's depicted, on Instagram
Yeah.
but people they're dissociated from it because they're in this weird facsimile of it.
Yeah.
Like it's really narcissism run amok
Yes.
because narcissism wants to create, the appearance of something because there's actually a hole there,
Yes.
you know, a person's inability to relate or consider other people as, part of their reality.
As
So you
people.
put on a show
Yeah.
to act as if, well, I am relating to people and I am happy. So that, yeah, that's something that's got to collapse as well.
It
Getting
causes so much
back,
suffering. It's like a huge cause of mental illness, and it feeds mental illness, it inflates mental illness, and yeah, it does have its source in just like it's water everywhere but not a drop to drink.
mhm,
It's that like horror of
mhm.
not being able to quench this thirst, yet you're surrounded by something that actually represents what you need but cannot be consumed or cannot nourish you. Um,
So
so
go
yeah,
ahead.
I just feel like that what that really results in, and it goes back to Oppenheimer, just the numbness and the nihilism following World War II, total justification for war crimes, atrocities, mass murder. And again, I know that World War II is complex and like our grandparents fought in that war. I'm not trying to insult any American, but to believe the oversimplified stories that justify these horrific acts,
Hey, they had
it's
that fucking bomb. They had
Mhm.
to use it. It was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
that
it
was the bottom line. Got
it's
to do it. Spend
right.
all that money.
And here we are 70 years later, and we could have like a deeper reflection on that. There could be actual contrition, real healing, some kind of repentance for that like terrible thing that was done, which it was nobody's fault in particular. It wasn't one person's fault. It was a lot of things going on. It was very complex. It's history. We don't
Well,
need to
look,
actually condemn an entire generation or anything like that, but to just be numb to that, it causes a certain dehumanizing, sociopathic consciousness to take hold, and that does not really allow you to respect the personhood of others. And now we have a situation where we are constantly asked in America as anyway, and it's very easy compared to actually being in a war zone, but we're constantly asked to support mass murder and genocide all over the world, which to me is deeply troubling. And it's very easy to garner that support for whatever reason. They just whip up some stories, and then they get, normal people who have no hatred in their heart for these strangers across the world to somehow like align their mind, body, and spirit with their destruction and their murder.
yeah,
And
tribalism again. I mean,
it's
okay, so Oppenheimer with the bomb. I mean, going back to what we opened the show with, which really was Barbenheimer.
yeah.
I mean, what did fucking Barbie do to women as a
Mhm.
force that, like, as a certain image that was like, ran like absolutely wild through the culture. I mean, I
Right.
don't even know the narrative of the film Barbie, but just that fucking doll in these high
Yeah.
heels, running around, perky tits, like what did that do to women's psyche? Like, I mean,
A
that's
lot.
another
A
question that needs to
lot.
be answered.
In fact,
Like,
my mom didn't want me to play with Barbies. She was against it. And I ended up playing with Barbies anyway, eventually, because I wanted one so bad. It was a forbidden fruit, and I had an aunt that got me one. And once the floodgates opened, I had Barbies. But yeah, my mom did not approve of Barbie for that very reason. She was really trying to look out for me. And it's objectification, just
yeah,
objectification.
this right. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you think it was bad for your mom
It's
with you getting that. You should have seen my poor dad when I got a Ken doll. He was horrified, and my mom got it for me anyway.
Well, that would have been a little more transgressive for sure. Like,
But yeah, no, Barbie was it's your first training bra.
Yeah,
It came out at a time when they were really starting to go hard on the baby boom suburban expansion,
mhm.
and it was just creating an image or a role model, to for young girls to shape their identities around so that they could become,
right, right.
and then Barbie became every profession, when the times changed. And it became,
Yes, yeah,
it basically, I don't know, it became like Barbie became this like model for how women, instead of serving their husbands, could better serve late stage capitalism
Mm,
or something.
yeah.
right. So Pluto into Aquarius, that's the
Yeah,
first trans Barbie coming. That'll be
Mm.
that's probably coming next.
definitely. I mean, it was already in the movie, so it's definitely coming down the
Oh
pipe.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I've
Yeah.
got to
Hey,
watch
hey,
more.
hey, hey, Mattel wants us to know they're on our side, all right?
Uh-huh.
This is what I mean. This is what I really hope for us. And I do think that some of the Aquarian spirit, it has a dystopian side, but it certainly has a quality that I hope will deepen people's reflections and will, I guess, in a certain way, help us to adapt to the tricks and the manipulations of propaganda in whatever form it comes.
Right.
Because we really do, like any plant has to adapt to an environment changing, or any animal has to adapt to changing food supplies. The fact that we have been inundated with mass media manipulation in the form of propaganda throughout the ages, but really what I'm talking about is, starting in the 20th century, Edward Bernays, the use of psychology to essentially use some kind of sorcery to manipulate you from a back door and to control your mind as much as possible. And I feel like that's what we need to develop more strength in and adapt more skills to defend against. It's not going to stop the insertion of these like really toxic ideologies into seemingly innocuous forms of entertainment or news reports or whatever. It's not going to
Well,
stop. So we need to adapt
remember
and
what
become stronger.
Orwell said? Journalism is printing what someone else does not want printed. Everything else is public
Yep.
relations.
Right. I mean, this is
That like
really
system's
true.
what you're talking about.
Yes. Yes. There's
So
a literacy that has to evolve.
yes, absolutely. And I think that's a great note to end on,
I
unless you
agree.
guys have other. I need a cigarette
Yeah,
desperately.
Same.
I need a
This stuff,
cigarette, and
oh my God.
but yeah, I would definitely, yeah, steal more Pepsi, um and pirate more movies, pirate all your music in 2024.
Oh my God.
And
And follow the money.
and follow the money, and follow the money, and don't forget to movie hop.
And
You
we're
know?
here for you guys in 2024, where we will be doing more close reads on
Yeah.
all of the cosmic permutations
Mm.
that are coming down the pike. So definitely continue to tune in.
Yeah, it's going to
And
be a big year for Rage of Aquarius, the Outsider Astrology podcast. Thank you all for listening.
yeah, and thank you guys. It was a blast today. Very
Absolutely.
enlightening.
Absolutely, yeah. This was on point, and we'll see you next year.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Hey again, it's Andre. I just wanted to hop on here one last time to thank you for an amazing year. It's been a dream serving you as a Rage of Aquarius podcast listener. Please stay with us and stay tuned next year because things are only going to get better for us here at the Rage podcast. And don't forget, save your spot at Rachel's 2024 astrology live stream on New Year's. Visit aeolianheart.com/NYE2024 or just follow the link in the description box. Thanks again. Have a merry holiday and a happy new year, and we will see you in 2024.